Hi everyone, this is Naomi Wood. It's the fourth day of me trying to raise awareness before I go to Washington D.C. in May. When I'm in Washington D.C., I will be speaking with congressional members. I'll be meeting with survivors of institutional child abuse, and I will be hopefully speaking in front of a press conference and some committees that are going to be reviewing a new federal bill that is designed to offer better protection for vulnerable youth in residential schools of the sort that my sister was in. Um, since the time that I found out my sister Naomi died of abuse and medical neglect, I have changed a lot and have found myself really interested in and committed to the ideal of justice and to being a voice of justice for survivors of these incidents of child abuse. And this is why I'm going to DC. So for today's video, I want to talk about Naomi and give backstory and sort of tell our story. This page right here on my screen is from the website that I made for Naomi a few months ago. The URL is here if you want to go to it. But yeah, so let's get started with backstory. Naomi was 17 when she died on May 19th, 2020. She was a student of Teen Challenge Liking Girls Academy, and when she died, I was under the impression, as was my family, that she died essentially peaceful. The night that we got the phone call she died, we were not given many details. What I remember being told was that she didn't feel well, had vomited once or twice, and that uh, the hospital staff were not sure why she died. The local law enforcement agency, Polk County Sheriff's Office, did an investigation and responded to the scene and did not find any signs of drug abuse or any sort of like foul play or anything that would cause alarm. And so that was all information we got within the first 48 hours of her dying. That was very crucial and critical for us. A week later, we traveled to Florida to um, visit the school that Naomi was at. Um, the school was in Lakeland, Florida, and one very important fact that is still troubling to me to this day is that we were, as a family, brought to the room Naomi died in, and we were told by the directors of the school, Dan and Holly Williams, that Naomi died in the top bunk on the left side of the room. And there was an exchange between my mother and Dan that is really cemented in my memory. And it goes, it's very brief. It goes like this. My mom said, "So this is where you found Naomi unresponsive." And she was referring to the top left bunk in the room. And Dan said, "Yes, this is where we found her." And she responded by saying, "So it must have been tough getting her out of the bed when she was unresponsive." And he said, "Yes, it was." And my mom started crying and uh, went on to honor that space in her grief and spent a few minutes taking it in, and as did the rest of us. We all thought that we were finding closure in that moment by being in the space that Naomi died in. We left Florida with not much other information. 6 months later, the autopsy by the District 10 medical examiner, Dr. Stephen J. Nelson, was released, and it said that Naomi died of a seizure disorder and that her manner of death was natural. When I learned about this, I didn't ask many questions. I was not in a space to be thinking critically um, as I am now. But this the sort of attitude that I had towards the situation changed substantially 7 months later in June 2021 when the Department of Children and Families in Florida released a child fatality summary that told a very different story than the one my family was told. I was at work when I found out about the report, and um, it cited a completely different narrative than Teen Challenge had told us. I'm going to pull that report up. This is the version of the child fatality summary that was released in June that I saw when I found out about it. I took it upon myself just to redact the names of the staff members listed here for a few reasons, but mostly just to respect their privacy. So when we when I started reading this report, it it was really troubling pretty quickly. Um, you're free to find this online, but I'm just gonna talk about the few highlighted parts here. Um, it says that the child got physically ill and was vomiting on the evening of May 18th, 2020, and continued to be ill throughout the night and following day, May 19th, 2020. I remember reading this and sort of like automatically being, "What do you mean she was sick for 24 hours?" I thought she was just sort of like didn't feel well and vomited twice. Um, it says that the facility staff did not seek any medical attention for the child until she was found unresponsive. Um, that was troubling. But this section here is where I got really angry. It says this: on May 19th, 2020, Naomi Wood was pronounced deceased at 7:16 p.m. The child had asked to be seen by a doctor in April for chronic stomach pain, but was not taken to the doctor. Since being at the facility, the child had received Pepto-Bismol approximately 20 times to address her stomach issues. She was never taken to the doctor, and facility staff never consulted a physician. That was very shocking to me because I had no knowledge that Naomi had chronic stomach pain. It was also shocking because it would seem pretty sensical um, to bring a minor to the doctor if they're complaining of stomach pain for more than a month. And to give somebody Pepto-Bismol 20 times is not something I would do because after a few doses of an over-the-counter medication, if the issue was not resolved, I would think to myself, okay, like this is something that needs to be addressed by a doctor. Um, this section here is very interesting to me because it represents to me a potential disagreement or a contrast in the way that um, the responding authorities investigated my sister's death. So here it says that the sheriff's office did not arrest anyone or charge anyone, but then it says that the Department of Children and Families closed the investigations with verified findings of death, inadequate supervision, and medical neglect as to Naomi Wood, with these two people as caregivers. The report goes on to cite a child protection team final case summary in which the director of the state of Florida's child protection team, Dr. Carol Lilly, says this: a medical consultation was completed after receipt of the autopsy report. Her impression was that medical evaluation is consistent with delay in seeking care and medical neglect. The institution did not seek care for Naomi, even though she was complaining of symptoms for 24 hours. Moving on from there, it says again that the medical examination cites a seizure disorder as the cause of death. But even despite that, Dr. Lilly says the CPT case is being closed with positive verified findings of death death due to abuse, neglect, and medical neglect, other neglect. To put that shortly, she is saying that the child protection team case is being closed with the verified findings of death due to abuse and medical neglect. When I read that sentence, I remember that I started to shake and sweat and was essentially incapacitated in my ability to think and feel and continue working that night. Um, it was really shocking to read this because it was completely different than what we were told. Um, the report goes on to say, while the medical examiner indicated that Naomi's death was from natural causes, there had been concerns regarding a lack of medical care while at the home prior to her passing. Um, After I got this report, I found the account on TikTok that had posted a screenshot of this report, and the video that they had posted had gone viral. And so I was looking through all the comments. There was 2,000 comments on the video, and I read through every single one of them. And I saw that some of Naomi's roommates, had commented on it. They said like, "Hey, I was Naomi's roommate. Um, LGA is lying about what happened to Naomi. We need to get justice for her." And so I was like, "Oh my gosh, what do you mean?" So I clicked on that account and I messaged them. And it ended up being her roommate. And I found out through our conversation that Naomi had not been on the bed that Dan Williams told me she was. That Dan Williams told my family she was in. I learned through this person that Naomi had in fact been on the floor when she was found unresponsive, that her mattress was on the floor as well, and that the reason for this was because Naomi was so ill and had been vomiting so many times that her roommates felt that she was at risk of hurting herself in the top bunk, and also felt like she would have a easier go at throwing up if she was on the floor. And so when I read those messages from this person, mind you, this is something that has been confirmed in another DCF report, which is confidential, and the police report by the Polk County Sheriff's Office. Both of those reports confirmed that Naomi was on the floor and not in the top bunk, as Dan Williams told us. So when I read those messages, I thought back instantly to the time where Dan told my mom and us that Naomi was in the bed, the bunk bed when she died, and all the trust that I had in the narrative that we had been given by Teen Challenge, like blew out the window. So I just had like there was no reason for me to trust anymore. Why? There was no reason for me to trust this organization anymore, because one, they lied about a very sacred piece of information. Sacred in the sense that my family was trying to find closure in Naomi's death at the time by honoring the specific space that she died in. But two, the Teen Challenge withheld very critical information from my family at a time that we were making critical decisions on how to respond to her death. So I want to play a video for you quickly, and then I'll continue talking about this. But this video is of Dan Williams being interviewed shortly after the DCF report was released in June 2021. And he says that they have nothing to hide. So here you go.
I've been advised by our organization just that I can't comment on anything. We have nothing to hide regarding that incident, and we're in full cooperation with all the entities involved. And I'm sorry that I can't comment more on that.
So what stands out to me about that recording of Dan Williams is that he says that they have nothing to hide, but it's clear to me, and it's clear to my family, that he does have something to hide, and that Teen Challenge does have something to hide. And why they would lie to us about the way in which Naomi died um, is something I can only speculate about, obviously, because I have not been able to speak to these people myself since we visited Florida. But I think it's certainly telling, and it's very troubling that we were not given the full story. So this is where I want to end the video for today, and I'm going to record another video tomorrow and post another one, but for today, this is kind of where I want to leave things before I answer a question that somebody asked me on Facebook. I'm just going to pull up something that I had written a few weeks ago. I just copied and pasted it from that document, which is why it's time-stamped as today. But this is sort of this is what I think. I'm just going to read it out loud. When I read the child fatality summary released by DCF, I discovered, among many other details, that Williams had lied to us. In a moment of time when my family was passing through a sacred process of death and grief, we were intentionally lied to, misled, and taken advantage of. Fundamentally, I view Williams' offense against me and my family as a murder of the most sacred of values in our society, those being trust and truth. Upon everything functional in society, these two values rest, and to have committed this act with a lucid and conscious mind against my family, while we sought only the truth by appealing to those two values, is an act of such heinous magnitude that it will forever astound my mind. If Williams was willing to lie and withhold critical information from my family at a time when we were making critical decisions, what other lies and violations of trust and truth was he also committing? I think that's the question that I am stuck with to this day. Like, why were we lied to? Why did he and Teen Challenge feel it was necessary to violate our trust? And why did they feel it was necessary to violate the truth rather than just tell us what happened?